Good afternoon, Scott Baker. How are you today?
Mikey, I am well, and I'm hoping that we are going to have a collegial talk here about bad behavior.
You're you're hoping,
Yeah,
which means
well,
is that
doesn't
your
always go that
gentle
way.
way of bringing up the idea that maybe there is something that we need to talk about? Because
Well,
that
here on
might be an effective way to do it.
yeah, well, the Lead Better mission, obviously, is to discuss the field note of the day, which is entitled "The Odd Tolerance and Intolerance of Bad Behavior." And this would be the edition for Saturday, July 12th, 2025. Thank you to all who are participating in this, whether watching the video version, the chat version, the live version, the podcast version, whichever one. Now, I will say, I have been in occasions where I have been targeted by somebody of bad behavior. I have seen people being treated badly. I have probably responded to either stand up for myself or a principal or stand up for another person. I don't know that I'd ever really thought too deeply about the fundamental assertion of this field note, that as human beings, we are more likely to stand up for somebody else than we are to stand up for ourselves when victimized by bad behavior. I don't think I probably thought it was true intuitively, but I don't know that I ever contemplated it until reading this field note. How about you?
I know that. Excuse me. I know that's true for me. It actually just happened to me recently, where a situation happened to
You're
me.
still choked up about it?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're ready to talk about it, or do you need a little time?
If it had been happening to my wife in front of me, I would have stepped in and intervened. But when it was happening specifically to me, I felt like I was under the spotlight. Like I needed to have like good behavior, like my ability to treat a stranger kindly was being the thing that was on display. And so the
Yeah.
idea of like I need to figure out a way out of this was like a third or fourth order consequence for me. And
Now, is this, just so I understand, was this a thing, you were being treated badly?
no, it wasn't even badly. There was a potential of something going haywire. There was this stranger that we were interacting with, but we were playing pickleball, right? And so in pickleball,
Okay.
there you could feel as if that on the pickleball court we are all pickleballers, and so that common
Okay.
thing that we have. And so this person that we didn't really know very well at all was like to me, "Hey, you want to hang out sometime?" Right? And it was obvious that this slightly odd person,
I
right?
see.
But I was on display with everyone else. Like, how is this person going to handle it? Right? So I handled it in a way that unfortunately encouraged the person to keep going instead of me pointing out that you're a bit of an odd duck. I don't know you very well. Perhaps that might be something that we could do, but how do you say that when you've got a dozen people standing around, right? Now, if it had happened to my wife, I would have immediately known how to like short
How to
circuit
step
the
in.
situation and
Right.
step in. But stepping in for myself in that kind of situation was just too weird of a thing to do.
Okay. So this was odd behavior more than bad behavior. But let
Yes.
me, and just so I understand, because I think it's illustrative, and then we'll look at both the advice or insights of the field note, and hopefully
Right.
everyone watching you probably can think of many occasions where you've witnessed this for yourself
Sure.
or others. But in this case, were you at all concerned that while this person was saying to you, "Hey, would you like to hang out sometime?" Which, even if they're odd, is a nice thing to be like,
Yes.
apparently people want to hang out with me. That's a good,
Right.
that could be a net good thing. Was part of the awkwardness that it wasn't also directed to other people? It wasn't like, I really enjoy hanging out with you guys. It was more like, hey,
I
Mike,
immediately knew
Okay.
that this person probably said this multiple, like this was their approach. He would
Their way.
say it like line 3. This, like, Mikey looks like a nice guy. He
Right.
didn't put me down in the first 2 sentences that we went
Right.
back and forth. So I better take advantage of the third sentence being this thing where I say,
thing that happened.
"Hey, do you want to hang out sometime?" Right? And it was loud enough for everybody to kind of hear, right? And so I was being like, it was only about my judgment, like how I was going to be judged in this situation,
Yeah,
instead
I
of the
get it.
fact, like, how do I teach this person? Because we're not calling it bad behavior. It was an odd person. It was an odd duck, and odd
Sure,
ducks do odd things, right? But I don't need to be the person who calls out an odd duck, right? Because that makes me look bad. And so in this, so me being able to step in and make a situation better for somebody else, to your point, is much easier for me than making a situation better for just me. Right.
Right.
So
now,
the only person to make it better for was the odd duck. So I didn't chastise them in public. I didn't allow them to feel like, right? But then that put me in another situation where if they get a hold of me again in some way, have I already, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, I'm looking forward to many future episodes of Lead Better where we'll see the evolution of this awkward thing, and hopefully they're not listening.
Well, when someone responds, here's the deal. Like they said to me right after that, let me get your phone number, right? And I was like, I don't have my phone on me. And they're like, that's okay. You can just plug it in right here. Right. And so at that point, you could say, I'm not in the habit of giving my phone number out to strangers, right? There were several things that could have come to my mind that didn't come to my mind in the end, but I knew the person would immediately check if it was the right phone number, right? So it's just the plague of a person who's like being too nice, right? So you joke about we're going to check in on chapter 2. Chapter 2 is definitely coming, and I don't exactly know what to do about it.
Well, maybe some folks can add in the chat their suggestions. Now, This is the part in Lead Better where we're going to pause Mikey. Watch, I'm going to pause and say, now, I was not expecting any of this when we began this episode of Lead Better, that it was going to go into such a weird territory. But here we are. We are. Right. So, okay, let's start again. Now we're back. And it's, I think in this case, your illustration actually can apply to the unpacking of the field note, because even though it's about bad behavior, we all encounter odd behavior.
Yes.
One of the things that is an admired leadership sort of maxim is that leaders are the ones who kind of make the stumble look like a dance. They make the awkward moment. They either are able to make the joke about it, or they're able to kind of lean into the weird moment, or the person in a Q&A that kind of gets belligerent. And they just have a way that doesn't make it like, oh my goodness, and everybody just freaks or freezes or whatever it is. Now, good luck next time you're playing pickleball. You're clearly playing with a weird group of people. But that's all fine. Now, the question here is, in bad behavior, and we all have seen this, whether in youth sports or maybe other teams we've played for, or somebody that's kind of the bully. It could be somebody who is a client that is gets angry in a restaurant, or you own the restaurant, or whatever the circumstance is. And why would we be willing to stand up for somebody else, but not for ourselves? What is the factor that causes us to be like, somebody's treating me badly? Now, there's a part of that that could be a good thing, which is be patient, be long-suffering. Other people have all kinds of problems. If you feel like you're confident in yourself, you could say, well, there's just an element of grace that I can bring to this. I don't have to be treated real well all the time for me to have a good self-image. Let me just tolerate this person in a way. Whereas
there's a real power in that.
Yeah, and there is. Whereas if you saw somebody treating your wife badly, right, in a circumstance, you might be more, you certainly would be more quick to say, hey, hold on a minute here, right? Now, the heart of the field note is the issue that when we allow a certain degree of toleration for bad behavior toward us, it kind of sets a rule that says that's okay.
Right.
So there is a danger on this line. How do you see riding that line in terms of like when it's okay to stand up for the principle for yourself? Because you also know, maybe I think I could get away with kind of tolerating this, but I'm actually setting a precedent not only for how to treat me, but how to treat everybody else.
Right. And in my case, I didn't feel like there was an organizational or a team culture that I was trying to protect. It was just one interaction between me and this person. And so it's a little bit different. What you're pointing out is important. Like if I was somehow a pickleball captain and in charge of the court and needed to set a culture for how that was happening on the court and the way that people did that, I might be easily compelled to treat that situation much differently. But I wasn't thinking that way at all in the moment. And so it didn't come up for me. Which is interesting because it makes me feel like if I had my leader hat on, which shouldn't be a hat, it just should be something that I'm going to behave
some
this
sort
way
of
all
weird
the time.
fedora or something.
Right. This is not it. So that's a good point there. Like, should I be thinking in any social situation that I'm in that I'm the one who's going to kind of host here, and if an awkward thing does happen, I'm going to be the one who steps up and tries to make things better. I normally do think that way, but when the awkward thing was happening to me, that's where it kind of pulled the rug out from under me. I was like, I'm not going to embarrass you because you asked an awkward question. I'm just going to treat it like it's normal. But your point is absolutely correct. If I normalize that in such a way where now that this odd person can abuse other people with the same odd question, then I have to do it in the right way. I have to confront them, right? I still don't know what I would have confronted them with or how I would have said it, but
Sure.
yeah.
Well, and the field note says that the confrontation over bad behavior doesn't have to be aggressive or turbulent or uncomfortable. And that if you just simply assert that that behavior is undesirable, then that usually takes care of it in most of those situations.
Right.
Yet somehow we want to feel like we come across in a certain way, so we don't do that.
Right.
Now,
say it's a conference table and everyone is telling jokes and someone in the middle of the joke number 4 comes out and it's an off-color joke, right?
Right.
That's where the leader needs to have something in their mind that says, this is how I handle that. Like you need to have phraseology worked out so that you can derail the fact that we're getting over the line here, right? But do it in a way that definitely confronts the bad joke or the person who told it in a way, but doesn't do it in a way that disenfranchises them.
Yeah. Well, and some of that is just established, like we would say in all leadership behaviors, over time and authenticity. This is the way how I go about in the world. And so if I never respond, like I've seen different circumstances where people will bring those kind of jokes to me and I just don't respond to them. And then over time they stop, right? Now, I've given an example in the past. It's been a while since I think you and I talked about it, maybe a couple of years. But certainly in a therapy culture, we are understanding, I'm not saying it's a good thing necessarily, but the idea that we do set a certain boundary. We teach people how to deal with us. We don't want to be hypersensitive. We don't want to have thin skins, but there's a way of saying, here's how I roll through the world. I'm going to respect you. You respect me. Respect is a theme that we do try to kind of underline. But early in my television news career, I saw a really great example. So when I had first gone from smaller markets to big markets, I had a chance to work with a really high-level attorney, not an agent, because I'd worked at CBS News in New York as on a fellowship program, and I got connected to somebody and they introduced me. So when I was early on, I got advice from this top-level attorney that charged a fortune back in these days, 35 years ago. And I never could have afforded him. And so he gave me free advice. But later, when I became a major market television news anchor, he would negotiate my contracts. One time I had a big contract in a major market, and I called Bob to say, I need you to work out the contract with this news director. And I knew that Bob himself, unlike most agents, had this special thing, which he only worked in person. So he was going to fly into the city, have a breakfast meeting with the news director, and they were going to begin this process. And I said, all right, well, you just need to know this guy he's tough. He's an a-hole. Like you're not going to have a fun conversation with him.
The news director.
The news director. And Bob was like, okay. And so he flew in. They were set to have a meeting at 8 o'clock. And I said, do you need any more information? He goes, no, I'm good. He called me at 8:15. And I said, do you need anything? He goes, no, I'm in the cab. I'm on the way to the airport. And I was like, it's 8:15.
Oh, he was done already.
And he's done all right. And I said, and he said, well, no, he was exactly as you described. He got real belligerent. And I just, I stood up and I said, I don't take part in conversations like this. And so I'm going to go to the airport and fly back to my office in D.C. If you'd like to have a second conversation, you're going to have to come to see me in D.C.
Right. And this was a renegotiation or
this was a big new I was already working at that station, but this was a big contract.
Okay. So there was some fear of you maybe losing your job.
Yes, but he was saying very, very intently to that person, you don't treat me this way.
Right.
And so then that news director had to go to D.C., meet with Bob in his office, right? And then they worked it all out, and then he was never that way toward him again over many years, right? But he established it early on by saying, if you're going to try to be a bully, I'm not going to tolerate that.
Right.
And he actually left us. So it was worth the plane ticket and the hotel room, all of which I paid for, right? And the hourly fee and all of that,
Right.
because it just said, here's the barrier, here's the boundary.
Well,
So
you
that's how I
mentioned,
learned it.
you preface this as psychological, but it's behavior, what you've just
Yeah.
described.
Yeah, very
it's all
much.
behavior. Yeah. It's,
So there you
love
go.
it.
I think
Okay.
we've covered this topic.
I think so. We'll end up talking tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow we're going to talk about, I'll just say this, warm-ups.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
All right.